Hey everyone, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today we're going to be showing you how to install the Etrailer.com idler hub assembly for 3,500 pound axles. Before we do that though, let's just take a moment, we'll check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. So for those of you that are deciding to do a little bit of trailer maintenance, bearings and hubs are kind of the place to start, especially when you go to pack bearings. But a lot of times, replacing the whole hub assembly is almost just as efficient as going through and kind of rebuilding everything, right? And that's especially the case with this one. It's really convenient that these are already pre-greased, already assembled, and make changing everything out extremely straightforward. The most important part when it comes to figuring out your hubs, and this is regardless of the brand or which one exactly, is to make sure that they're going to fit not only your axle, but your wheel and tire combination too. All right, and so, like I said, this is going to work with 3,500 pound axles. Really common size. They have a number 84 spindle, so the type spindle that the hub actually slides onto. Like I said, extremely common. If you're unsure of what axle you have, usually if you look underneath of it, there will be a tag, something like this, that has a part number or the rating telling you what it is. Sometimes the manufacturer stamps them right into the axle tube, or there's some type of plate, some type of reference that you can use to figure out which axle exactly it is that you have. If you don't have any of that stuff on there, maybe it come apart or something, then there are several different types of measurements that you can take to figure out which axle it is that you have and the capacities. As far as the wheels and tires, it's going to work with wheels that have a 5-on-5 bolt pattern. So meaning you have 5 studs, and the 5 inches is how far apart these are. So a really common size is 4.5. We have the 5-on-5, and so if you're not sure, real quick way to check, you can pick one of the holes, measure from the center of it, and go straight down in between the 2 other holes, so that distance there, and that'll tell you what you got. So 5 lug nuts, this measurement was 5 inches, we have a 5-on-5. If you have 5 lug nuts and you measure it like that and it's 4.5 inches, then you have a 5-on-4.5. Good news is there's hubs pretty much identical to this one and many others out there that are compatible with the 5-on-4.5 if you come to find out that's what you got. I have an extra hub on hand here. I just wanted to show you kind of the inside of it, what's going on. So like I said, these are already assembled, with the bearings inside of it. They're pre-greased. The seal's already driven into place for you. And so it makes everything really convenient and really straightforward. The type of grease that's in there is a lithium complex type grease. So if you do ever, decide to repack the bearings or service them or anything like that, make sure to use a grease that is compatible with that lithium complex. The hub does come with new lug nuts too, which I think is nice. You're not going to have to deal with your old, more than likely rusty ones and worrying about if they're the right style and the right thread pitch and everything like that. So, real convenient there. And it comes with your cap too to cover up the axle nut. So, this is just a package of one hub, right? And I always recommend doing all of them if you're in there servicing everything anyway. So, got a single axle, I'd recommend getting 2. Tandem axle, recommend getting 4, but it's entirely up to you when it comes down to it. But at the end of the day, really nice setup. I'm a huge fan of these already being pre-packed and already put together and whatnot. It just makes everything really simple. You don't have a huge mess or nearly a huge mess to deal with, and ends up working out. As far as the installation goes, everyone's setup's going to be a little bit different. We have a pretty standard example here today on our utility trailer, And so hopefully what we do can get you going in the right direction and help you get yours swapped out. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started on it now. So it first starts with jacking your trailer up, making sure it's safe and secure and everything, enough to get the wheel up off the ground and get the wheel and tire out of the way. Pop this off and set it to the side. We can get our cap off now. In our case, it's wore, it's incredibly loose. A lot of times though, you'll have to take a little tool like this or a flathead screwdriver, kind of do one of these deals, take a hammer to help kind of pop it off like that. Do recommend having a piece of cardboard or something set off to the side where you can put all these parts on. In our case, the retainer is a cotter pin, so I'm gonna straighten those ends out. Remove it. You should be able to just grab the axle nut. Sometimes if it's tight, you might have to get a socket or a pair of channel locks or something to break it loose. So these, I got a little more leverage here. Makes removing this a lot easier. Should be able to grab her hub. Let's kind of swiftly pull back on it. So we pop that out. Our seal and the bearing actually stayed on the spindle. Came right off though. That's why when I pull that hub, I try to do it kind of swiftly in case these are seized up a little bit. That usually gives it enough force to pull them off or at least loosen them up. So there's our seal. And then what you want to do is clean all this old stuff off and inspect the spindle. Make sure we don't have any major gouges or scoring or anything like that. After cleaning up the spindle, I just use brake clean, and let it dry and everything, wiped it clean. Spindle checks out, no major gouges or nothing crazy like that happening. What I'm doing here, I'm just taking the grease and just applying a coat onto the spindle. You want to avoid getting a bunch of it up here on this portion where the seal's going to slide onto. Really thin layer is fine, but we're also going to do a thin layer on the actual seal. So just don't have a huge blob, big mess on there. So now we can grab our hub here, and since it's already done for us and put together, you can carefully slide that onto the spindle. And then take your washer, pop that on, followed by the axle nut. I'll run this down by hand. So once you get this tight as you can by hand, we can torque it down. And while you're doing this is going to seat the hub and everything. While you're doing this, you want to make sure to spin the hub. And then back the nut off and try to hold the hub steady. Then you just get it finger tight. And take your cotter pin, we'll put that through and bend the ends up. We'll check everything, it spins freely, no in and out play. So feels good. And what we'll do now is take our cap and we'll get this in place. I have a little driver that I'm going to use, but one thing you can do is take a block of wood, tap the cap into place, or mallet. I've taken flathead screwdriver, some type of punch, and just kind of work it into position. With this one all done, you feel free to go ahead, do the other side the exact same way if you did happen to pick up 2 of these. And finally, you can put your wheels and tires back on, tighten down the lug nuts, and you always want to make sure and come back with a torque wrench and completely tighten them down to the manufacturer's recommendations. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Etrailer.com idler hub assembly for 3,500 pound axles.